What's going on, wrestling fan? Long time no see. It's your boy Captain Cole here on the mic, and I got the one and only Mr. DF Sports on my side right here. And
Yes.
boy, oh boy, let me tell you something. It may have been a while, but the news just keeps getting spicier, spicier, and spicier. And let me tell you what, the last time we were here, we were talking about old Vincent Kennedy McMahon's big fallout with paying strippers, executives in WWE for sexual favors. And now we got more fallout news. So,
Boy, how the mighty have fallen there, man. Hey, by the way, off the start, I just want to say, because I am recording 3 podcasts today, so disclaimer, I am still sick. I'm recovering. I've been sick all week, so obviously got this podcast here. We're gonna be talking wrestling, and then my other ones. If you notice that I'm kind of quiet, I'm uh I'm doing my best. But we are here. So yeah, Cole, we haven't talked in a long time, but Vince McMahon, man, since this stuff came down, it has been quite the roller coaster. But go ahead. What have we missed with this?
jeez, roller coaster indeed. Oh, and this roller coaster, let's just start off with one elephant in the room. So it has been reported recently that Vince Russo is apparently behind the scenes doing some work with the WWE. And it has been reported that since 2020, Vince Russo has been secretly behind the scenes working for USA Network on WWE Raw, which is surprising because Vince Russo is like a deer caught in the headlights when it comes to booking. I mean, stripper pole matches and Miss Bagwell on a forklift match. Really? And then they bring him back. Apparently, they brought him back in 2002 for a short little stint after the merger of WCW and WWE. But apparently, Vince Russo came on his podcast not too long ago and said the following: I've been keeping a little secret for the last 2 years, and I want to come clean. From March pre Mania of 2020, during a pandemic, up until this past WrestleMania of this year, 2022, he has been consulting for the USA Network, and they have been paying him apparently really, really well. Now, I'm
Wait
just
a minute, hold
curious.
on. Vince Russo has been consulting for the USA Network. Is that what you're telling me right now?
That is exactly what I just said. Vince Russo has been a consultant for the USA Network working on WWE Raw for the last
Have
couple
they
years.
not learned from his past mistakes with networks? I mean, come on.
Well, let's see. He buried WCW, he buried TNA, tits and ass wrestling, but as he call it, yeah, TNA wrestling. And now he's on WWE's payroll, or no, I'm sorry, let me back up. He's on USA Network, quote unquote, payroll, but somehow he's working on all of WWE's business as a consultant. They didn't get that the first time after he buried what he did with TNA when he buried Destination America and Pop TV and said, "Hey, you got a bill of goods. You bring me in, I will make you millions." Which we saw what happened when he made WCW millions. They ran right into the ground. So oh boy, it just getting spicy. Yeah, Vince Russo is a very vocal person, but obviously hasn't learned that, maybe his New York accent is getting in the way of some of his creative, which obviously strip pole in matches, I don't think that's very creative at all. What do you have to say about all this?
You know, it amazes me because this is not just in the professional wrestling world, right? We see this all over the place. How you can have a record of failure. You know what I mean? And I don't want to talk bad about another man, whatever, but Vince Russo to have this job, it is it is kind of funny because it's like if you failed at your job over and over and over for different companies over and over and over, why would the USA Network want you? I don't know, but I can tell you one thing, Cole. I think this probably isn't going to last long because if history repeats itself, and we know it does, he's gonna do something to get somebody in trouble, and then he's gonna, play the blame game, and eventually his ass is going to be on the way out. I just don't know why USA would want him in this role to begin with. That's kind of where I stand on that.
Right. And, it's just amazing with the resume that Vince Russo has that somehow he's still able to get a job, inside the wrestling business in some capacity. It just blows my mind. Which, if anybody who listens to Jim Cornette, they would know better than to hire Vince Russo and stuff. Because, I mean, if you've seen any of his booking, like I've said in the last 5 minutes, yeah, you're not going to be getting a lot of good quality content, as we like to say. Speaking of which, more people who are just so bright, but in reality couldn't light a match if it meant to save their life. Ex WWE official celebrated John Laurinaitis' termination, which I don't know who doesn't celebrate that because this guy was an absolute joke. Earl Hebner, which Earl Hebner, okay, yeah. He's a good referee. Dave was a good referee, and so on and so forth. But obviously, Earl Hebner is still the one kicking the Montreal Screwjob box around, hoping to get some more publicity and attention. But that was over 25 years ago. But nevertheless, man, apparently when John Laurinaitis was terminated, it was goodbye and good riddance to you. So, Earl Hebner had this to say: I celebrated it. I hated him. I still hate him. He abused his power to everybody. He was two-faced and always has been. He'll laugh, smile, and stab you in the back while doing so. And Earl Hebner saying that's whatever age he is at, late 60s, early 70s, whatever. He said, I would love to really just kick him in the balls. And boy, I think there's a lot of people that would love to do the same thing too to John Laurinaitis because, man, this guy – yeah, he's the biggest yes man in the world, has that $1 million smile, says, oh, yes, ma'am, Miss McMahon. Yes, sir, Mr. McMahon. We'll get it done right away. And then proceeds to go ahead and just bury everybody and run the company right straight into the ground with talent relations. And apparently he is not good at managing talent. What do you have to think about John Laurinaitis getting the axe?
Yeah, I mean, this should have happened a long time ago, if we're being honest. I mean, John Laurinaitis has been a joke for a long time. And I know we reference it a lot on this podcast, but going back to the punk pipe bomb and not even just that, but many of the other ones, it's like the whole future endeavors thing and how he kind of treats people as a whole, not treating them like people. And we know this from the from the stuff that's come out with Vince McMahon, but it's like, yeah, listen, if Earl wants to celebrate it, man. Everybody should be having a party that Laurinaitis has gone, in my opinion. And it's what's the old saying, taking the baby out with the bathwater. It's just that's what it is. You got to get them out.
Yeah, or should I say taking out the trash in this instance. Another person that is part of the old guard, old Mr. Kevin Dunn. And I remember we talked about this not too long ago about how Kevin Dunn was doing some insider trading, selling off stock before the whole Vince McMahon termination, layoff, whatever you want to call it. But apparently, I was wrong. We were all wrong. We thought Kevin Dunn was toast. We thought Kevin Dunn was going to get raided by the FBI SWAT teams and taken out in shackles and locked away in a cage and with a key thrown down the biggest hole on planet Earth. Which, if anybody knows where that biggest hole is, it's right up his rear end. But hey, but we were wrong. Apparently, Kevin Dunn is still working at the World Wrestling Entertainment Incorporated. I couldn't believe it myself. Uh, according to latest reports coming from inside WWE, Dunn's status with WWE is 100% unchanged, and anyone who states anything to the contrary is 100,000% incorrect. And he has been there for decades. And apparently, according to Triple H himself and Stephanie McMahon and Nick Khan, Dunn is still factored into WWE's future plans. Now, for someone that's done some insider trading and some really abhorrent things and couldn't film a cat race with a $2 camera, somehow he still has a job inside WWE. And I am shocked. And I am shocked that Triple H is still letting this guy stay on board. Now, given their production value over time has obviously improved, I just don't know how a dirtbag Bucky Beaver looking dude still has a job after all this time. I mean, the only reason why he got the job to begin with was because his dad or someone saved the burning tapes out of a firing car, out of a car that burst in flames, whatever. But I'm still amazed that this guy, Kevin Dunn, still has a job inside WWE. Derek, what do you think about Kevin Dunn still having a job inside WWE?
I mean, it's the same thing with Laurinaitis to me. I mean, take the trash out. Kevin Dunn is trash. He's been trash for way too long. I mean, well, the Attitude Era wasn't terrible, but his new, and it almost makes me wonder how much of it is Vince, how much of it is Dunn, TV executives, how much of it is their ideas versus his own. Um, but to your point, how you can have a high up member, I guess, of a company who has heavy influence. I mean, to sell off and have to, first of all, to have the stock that he had, and then to sell it off before, the disaster that happened, from Vince's side of things and the company's side of things. It's pretty amazing to me that he's not in jail, first of all, but to keep him around, I mean, that's like having an anaconda live in your house and just being like, "Oh, you can stay." You ate one of my kids, but you can stay. It's just doesn't make a ton of sense to me, And I can't Cole, I know he's involved in the future plans, but guess what? It's professional wrestling. Future plans don't mean anything. I I I wish I could put a timetable on it when I think he'd be gone, but I still can't see him being around for the long term. I don't know. What about you?
Uh, I wonder how long term is going to play out. What is long term? That is my question. What is long term in the wrestling business?
Well, that's a good point.
Uh,
What if long term means just through WrestleMania,
completely possible. Hell, it could be just maybe to the end of the year, and that's about it. Who knows? Anyways, back to more bringing in old talent to bolster up their ratings and their roster. Braun Strowman, not too long ago,
Yes.
has returned to the WWE, and this was after being released back during the pandemic and everything. We got to cut costs, so we're going to go let this big man go. And then, well, now that the giant in the room, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, had been removed from his position, which they say he resigned. Honestly, I say he got fired and kicked out the door. But nevertheless, yeah, big man Braun Strowman is back, and he destroys 4 tag teams in a number 1 contenders match just out of nowhere. Wow. And obviously, we all know that this was a Triple H move, of course, now that he's in charge of creative and talent relations. Um, seemed like this is definitely, I feel like, maybe one of the better moves. Because, I mean, okay, look, I understand during the pandemic, costs had to be cut, but really, y'all had to release this guy. And then, which he was definitely one of the better big man because the only one they pushed for the last year or so was Omos. And he was like a deer caught in the headlights in the ring for the most part, at least. So it's nice that they brought Braun back. So at least they got another big man that can actually do a little more work. So this is definitely one of the more positive moves, I feel like. So that Triple H has done. So kudos Triple H for seeing talent for the most part and bringing back people that should have been let go of in the first place. But hey, who am I to judge? What do you think about Braun Strowman coming back, Derek?
Well, I'm actually, I was really interested in hearing your opinion on it, and I'm glad you said what you did because I could not agree with you more. I mean, that was legitimately my exact thoughts, word for word. I mean, if you switched my voice with yours, we'd be thinking the same thing on what you just said. I mean, why they let Braun Strowman go to begin with kind of blows my mind. I mean, um, historically, Vince loves the big, strong guys. That's the joke. But Braun Strowman is a legitimate star. Like he's a star, right? He might not be the best talker. He might not be the best in the ring, whatever you want to criticize him on. But the one thing you can't deny is he's got that star presence and he's got the look. I mean, the dude, since he's come back, has somehow gotten even leaner and stronger and updated a little bit. He got a haircut, looks good. Um, I'm thrilled. I'm actually very, very, very happy that Braun Strowman is back. This is kind of one of the guys that I was hoping would make his way back because he didn't fit in AEW for me. Um, he's a WWE guy. His gimmick is the monster among men, which now he's going by, I think, monster among monsters or something like that. Um, but exactly what you hit on, that was kind of my thing here was they've been needing this, and we've talked about it time after time here about how, they tried to push Omos and he's not ready. He's not that guy, he needs a lot of work. And you had a guy who is what you were hoping Omos would be, you know what I mean? That superstar monster giant that you could have in a big role, and it doesn't mean title role, I mean, how many times back in the day, the bigger guys, you're talking about your big shows, your Canes, Undertaker's a little bit different, but you know what I'm talking about, the bigger giants who are actually believable that they're monsters and can run through people. We haven't had that. Braun Strowman has pretty much just been that, and now that he's back, that's a much, much needed part of the roster because now that Triple H is in charge, your Tommaso Ciampas, your Johnny Garganos, those guys of the worlds, they're starting to come up, and that's awesome. And I'm happy for them. But you need something, and that something was a giant that's a star that's believable. And now they have that back. And I will say this, the only criticism I have to it was you kind of squashed the Street Profits and whoever else was in that four-way like you talked about, but they needed this bad. They desperately needed it, and we'll see. Cole, let me ask you this. Obviously, we've talked about this before, but when it comes to Roman, is Strowman now a possibility down the line, 3 to 4 months, build him up? Because I think he could be.
I think so too. That would be a really good match to have between Roman and Braun Strowman for the reason that it kind of. I don't know if it kind of gives me that Andre Hulk vibe, but I mean that's probably going to be the closest thing you're going to get to having that kind of match. Is having this big giant guy that can do some work because okay, that last match that Braun Strowman had in WWE WrestleMania against Shane McMahon was an absolute joke in a cage. But you put Roman and Braun in a cage and make it like a number one contender match or like a title match or something like that, you could almost, in a sense, recreate that Hulk Andre feel. And I feel like that'd be big ratings, big dollars, and it would put a positive light on WWE in a time where they could really use a positive light on the company after all the big fallouts they had. So
Well,
having that
think
level
about
of
it.
match,
Yeah, think about it from this point too, because we've talked about it, right? Clearly, the long term is either one of two people. It's either Cody
mhm,
or it's The Rock, and I don't think it's going to be The Rock. I mean, they might have the
no,
match in the end, but is The Rock going to win? No, it just I don't think it makes sense. Because I mean, what does he have to gain? What, more popularity? Like he needs that,
mhm.
you know? Um, but what have we seen? We've seen the cycle now of Drew McIntyre, which I think, Drew's awesome. I loved the match at Clash. I loved a lot of the things that Drew does, but he's recycled, it's the same system. Bobby Lashley. We've seen Brock Lesnar for a billion times versus Roman. They tell us it's the last one, and then we see it again. And it's like, okay, at some point, you have to have somebody new. And it sucks that Cody got hurt, and it sucks that Randy's hurt, and it sucks that AJ Styles wants to be a bitch and not challenge for a title, because he wants time off, which I get it, but it's also been like 3 years since you've been at the top of the company. You're one of the best in the business, like step up. Um, but they've had this continuous cycle and they need that fresh face that feels like a challenge. And that's why I think I agree with you, Cole. I would say give it what, couple months? I mean, I don't know where we're at right now because
We're
Cody.
almost on Extreme Rules, actually.
Okay. Because I think Cody's
I would
back
say
for the Rumble, if I'm not
that would
mistaken.
be,
And that's January,
yeah, that's January.
something like that. So, and do you have Cody win the Rumble? Because if you don't want Cody to win the Rumble, I would have Strowman win the Rumble.
Right.
Personally, that's what I would do.
Mhm.
Oh, and you know what I
Yeah, I
just
mean,
thought
you
of?
go ahead.
Here's a really good story that they can do. And you're gonna have to go with me to Imaginationville here. But What if what if Austin Theory keeps holding on to the Money in the Bank, because they've already pulled that trigger and there's no real going back now. So just have him hold on to it, right? And just have the story be that every time Austin Theory tries to cash in, Braun Strowman just absolutely destroys him and create that fear, right, in the back of his mind, and then all of a sudden have Braun get into that main event picture. You know what I'm saying? And then have that story of Austin Theory trying to overcome that monster. I don't know how they
Yeah,
would do it, but that's just an idea. I mean, it's something.
well, I mean, if they start it now, they might be able to squeeze in the first match of the feud around Survivor Series. That should end of November. It's possible. Then again, hey, you could always do it, sometime in the next year or so. At least like build up a feud, or maybe I don't know if you could do it for free like on a Raw or SmackDown, but I think if you definitely started it sometime around Survivor Series, something like that, that might end up folding in very well as a 6 month feud all the way through maybe Hell in a Cell as like a big or the next Money in the Bank in July as like a big blow
Something
off
like
for
that. Or you know what?
yeah.
Hey, here's an idea. Elimination Chamber. Last year, Brock destroyed everybody in the chamber. I
Hmm.
don't want to say do that back to back years, but what if you had Braun in there? And maybe it's not for a title, but it's for um I don't know. You know what I mean? There's just I feel like there's a lot that they can do with him, and that's kind of the best
Right.
part about him being back.
Absolutely. You could, I wouldn't make, yeah, maybe not for a title, but maybe either like a number one contenders match or definitely like a spot, in a big pay per view event, or like a match at like a maybe like a, three way or a fatal four way or something like that. Let's see if you did like elimination chamber, maybe we could do like WrestleMania, hopefully, or well, Backlash, whatever that's worth. So. Miss Possible, yeah, you could definitely make something work out of it. So, speaking of things that WWE is attempting to make work, which it's possible it could, Roman Reigns versus Logan Paul. What do you have to say about that?
Well, this is I talked with you for a minute about this before we started recording, and uh, here's my thing, right? You remember when Pat McAfee had Adam Cole on his show, and it was a great angle and it felt real. I mean, there's very few times that we can actually say, "Was that real?" You know? And, that was one of them, and clearly it was a work, but, um, it kind of felt like that's what they were doing here because I don't Cole, you probably missed it, but they had, Roman on Logan Paul's podcast. Now, okay, good idea, good publicity. You got your top star with one of the, most viewed influencers in the world. But there's a big problem. Big problem with how they handled this. If you go and listen to the podcast, it is literally 58 minutes of Logan Paul sitting there saying, "Oh my gosh, you're so great. You did this, you did that, you overcame this, you did that." And it's just kissing his ass, right? Now, at the very end of the podcast, he starts talking shit, and it's like, "Oh, I could beat him. I did this." And I'm just like, "Okay. If the idea was to have an Adam Cole, Pat McAfee type thing here, which I think it was, because it's Triple H, and remember, Triple H was in charge of NXT at that time, so I think that's what they were going for here. You don't have an hour-long podcast of kissing ass. That's just not how it works. So, I'm very disappointed with how they handled this because in my opinion, it should be the head of the company, the guy who's been on top for legitimately 2 years now, um, and then have Logan Paul talk shit, like, unnecessarily be a jerk, you know what I mean? Not kiss ass the
Yeah,
entire time and then all of a sudden pretend like, "Oh, I could beat you." Like, no, I just feel like they coulda handled this better. I see the vision, but I think this was executed wrong, and I have no excitement for this match because, A, we know Logan Paul is not gonna win, right? B, it's going to be in Saudi Arabia, so this is a English, publicity, match, but you're not even handling it the right way to have publicity, in my opinion. That's what I'm disappointed with.
yeah, absolutely. They really dropped the ball on that for sure. You would think that if you're going to set up a big feud, that when you invite someone on your podcast like that, you would just go at it. But no, it's just it was bland, it was soft, and it was shit. Realistically, it was shit. It's like, what are you doing? Why are we just running your mouth, just smooching on the cheeks, and then all of a sudden the last like 5 minutes is, oh, yeah, I can beat you. that that just doesn't make sense. And I mean, okay, I will backtrack and give a competing argument saying, okay, maybe Logan Paul isn't so in tune with the wrestling business and doesn't completely understand how some of it works and that you really shouldn't do that. But even still, I feel like somebody should have, coached him, educated him to the idea that, hey, if you're going to set up a feud, you don't want to be going on your podcast and just smooching up and all that. I mean, are you wrestling this guy or are you tag teaming with this guy? What are you trying to do? What direction are you trying to take, the storyline in? And
Hey, let me put it to you like this, because I'm sure there's going to be people saying, "Well, how would you do it? How can you have an hour-long podcast and, have it come out effective?" I'll tell you how. Go rewatch the interview with McAfee and Colt. Now, I want to say it's like a 15-minute, so it's clearly different, but it was set up to perfection because there were little things that started it off that kind of grew into bigger insults and shade thrown, and it boiled over at the perfect moment. That's how you do it. Started off, hey, happy to have Roman Reigns, whatever. And then you can say, you've been the champ for 2 years. Now you've missed plenty of pay-per-views, but you're still the champ. You know what I'm saying? Like, just throw little things, just some little shade here and there, and let it build, and then eventually have the podcast end with Roman getting up and walking out. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could have done it so much better. That's what I hate. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, you got it. So
there's plenty of examples of how to do it better.
Oh, well, speaking of things that could always be done a little bit better, let's go to the competition where our cocaine dealer, I'm sorry, Mr. Tony Khan. Cocaine dealer. Let's go to cocaine wrestling with AEW. So, ladies and gentlemen, the last time we were here, we were talking about MJF and his big pipe bomb promo, and we thought, man, it is over with, it's done, MJF is terminated, this is it, so on and so forth. And in the entire time we've been out, boy, have we been proven a little bit wrong. MJF is apparently back. And this is a little bit of reporting from whatculture.com on how MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, passed his time. And as it turned out, that this was apparently a bit of a work. We thought it was a shoot, and it sounded like a shoot, but then again, I know a lot of people were like, well, be careful because this could possibly be a work too. And as it turned out, well, this was kind of a work. And apparently MJF said in interviews and recently that he basically closed his door, locked himself in his house, didn't contact anybody, and then out of nowhere, they built him up for a return, which I thought was smart. If that's the way you're going to do it, yeah. Even though, okay, the pipe bomb promo was excellent. I mean, it had everybody just like, wow. And we thought it was over, but then the way they did, the way they brought him back in the spotlight after that 3-month, cutting everybody off and just not working and stuff. The way they brought him back at this latest pay-per-view that they did, the casino ladder match, or what I believe that was what it was. Wow, excellent job done there, to say the least. But right now, it's unclear if he's on a new contract or if they restored it. But I think a lot of the reason why he was brought back, according to this reporting, is this was more a Warner Brother Discovery, the new bosses at TNT, decided to bring him back. And because they saw that this guy was a ratings monster, he could cut a promo, and he's by far one of the best talents the wrestling business has right now. So, what do you think about MJF being returned to the spotlight, Mr. Derek?
It was pretty wild how they handled this because I think it's tough because clearly it was a work to an extent. But I do believe there was some shoot in it. I believe that voicemail that they played, um, that whole devil's mask thing and that whole quick gimmick that lasted like a day, whatever. I think that voicemail was real. That voicemail of Tony Khan saying, "Listen, I need you. Doesn't matter if you're on a new contract or not. I'll pay you." Like, I think that was real. Can you imagine Tony Khan not saying that? I mean, I think that was legit. Um, I will say this, it's a little bit disappointing on MJF's side of things that his return was overshadowed by the children in the locker room. Um, because and we'll talk about that here in a second, but I think I don't know. I don't I want to believe that he's on a new contract, but I really don't. I really don't because look at how he handled it on his first promo back. They're in Buffalo, New York. Comes out wearing a Josh Allen jersey. Everybody's like, "Oh, how's AEW going to react to this backstage stuff? How are they going to handle all this?" And MJF comes out as kind of like this, haha, F you, I'm back. Like, I'm here to ruin things again. And he comes out and he's overly nice, right? Josh Allen jersey on, kind of doing the Ric Flair thing of, the "Hey, fat boy," but he said it to some lady or whatever, and then said, "No, just kidding, you're beautiful," whatever. And just like the way that he did it was great. And then all of a sudden it changed and he turned into MJF again. And it's like, bro, this guy is the top star of your company. Like, he's not there yet. Like, I don't think they should put the title on him right now, but now that he's won that the casino battle royal, whatever it is,
Mhm.
he gets that match. And I would say give Moxley that title run for probably another 2, 3, 4 months, maybe at the max. And then you pull that trigger and you make him champ and you let him hold that title because listen, the ratings have not been down as far as I'm aware with Punk gone, with the Bucks gone, with Omega gone. Like, MJF is really a huge rating draw. And that's why when he said the bidding war of 2024, it's hard to believe that they would let him back without a contract, but at the same time, guess what we said about Cody? No way Cody is wrestling Sammy Guevara for the TNT Championship without a contract, and guess what? He didn't have one, and look where he is now. So, I don't know. It's definitely interesting.
Well, you mentioned the kids in the locker room. Let's talk about the kids in the locker room. So, when MJF came back around the same time, we found out that there was some drama that exploded into some very serious fists being thrown at other people. And I just want to start off and preface this by saying, let's look at how CM Punk's journey has been inside the company. He was out for 7 or 8 years after his pipe bomb promo in WWE and said, "I quit," or so on and so forth, and the whole Stephanie McMahon and stuff promo that he did on national television Raw. And we look at his return. They bring this guy back as this mega superstar the way that he should be returned. And not only did they book him into oblivion and they put CM Punk in these press conferences with a coke addict that has his name is Tony Khan. And they bring him back with this when they bring him to these press conferences with his coke addict and CM Punk's like, "What am I doing here?" Look, how he had that look. I mean, he may not have been, giving it openly, but anybody that knows how to read a room could tell that CM Punk's like this isn't serious, and why should he take it serious if it being booked into absolute oblivion? Like the last match I saw on AEW TV was CM Punk versus I forgot who it was, but anyways, it was horrible. And CM Punk just looks old and blown up. And quite honestly, just the way he looks, unfortunately, he's I don't know how he's still wrestling at this point. I mean, just the way he looks now, I feel like a lot of people were very disappointed and lost a lot of respect for CM Punk. And now after this show that he did in this locker room, I would be surprised if he works in a wrestling business again. So for those that don't know, recently there was a brawl that broke out in the AEW locker room after the media scrum that CM Punk and Tony Khan did after AEW's All Out, and obviously Tony high on cocaine with a little bit of the powder on his nose, you could see it. So on and so forth. There was a fight, and apparently Punk threw punches at the Young Bucks. AEW producer and apparently Punk's friend Ace Steel bit Kenny Omega and pulled his hair, and Nick Jackson got hit in the eye with a chair. And as a result, there have been a lot of suspensions in AEW. So Kenny Omega is suspended, Mac Jackson is suspended, Nick Jackson is suspended, Pat Buck is suspended, Christopher Daniels is suspended, Michael Nakazawa is suspended, Brandon Cutler is suspended, and it's also reported that Punk and Ace Steel is possibly either, right now they're suspended from what we know. Now, whether or not they're going to get fired remains to be seen, but a lot of eyes are saying that apparently it is completely possible that he is going to be fired. And according to recent reporting, Punk got stripped of the AEW World title, along with the Elite being stripped of the AEW World Trios titles. And after AEW Grand Slam, Chris Jericho defeated Claudio Castagnoli to win the ROH World Champion. And then during this episode, Ian Riccaboni talked about the top stars, and Punk's name wasn't mentioned. And according to some insider information, CM Punk is not expected to wrestle in AEW again. And now, obviously, this isn't 100% confirmed. We're not completely sure about this. But given everything that's been going on, all the reporting, so on and so forth that's happened, and given CM Punk's immature childishness, which we thought he was a better man. I thought he was a better man. But to see this happen, and now a lot of lights being shed on how CM Punk really is, I would be surprised if Tony Khan actually lets him back, which, hell, knowing Tony Khan, he probably will. But given the circumstances, I feel like I've really lost a lot of faith and respect for CM Punk, just now knowing everything that's come out and all that's being known. Now, obviously, the stuff that we have is, we have some insider information, but a lot of it, there's still a lot of haze and clouds that haven't been cleared from this. So the eventual fallout remains to be seen. But given what's going on, this is just a disaster of epic proportions. So what do you have to say about all this, Derek?
It's sad. It's very sad because Punk was supposed to be a locker room leader. And you're right. There's kind of been some not misreporting, but mixed reporting would probably be the best way of saying it, because there's been reports that Punk was kind of pushing for a fight, and then there have been reports that the Bucks and Omega and everybody kind of showed up and started it, which, by the way, shout out to Kenny Omega. This shouldn't be funny, but it is the funniest thing trying to imagine this. apparently saving CM Punk's dog during the fight. I just picture Kenny Omega running in, grabbing a dog, and just holding it in the corner, like, "You're right. You're gonna be okay. Daddy's gonna be fine." Like, I don't know why that's so funny to me, but when I heard that, I was like, of course, out of anybody, it would be Kenny Omega to grab the dog, but he is okay, apparently. I mean, I haven't heard otherwise, but um, yeah, will Punk ever wrestle again? That's kind of the question. And it's tough because he is such a high money asset, you know, and have the ratings remained since he's been back? Not really. It hasn't shown that he is this massive ratings, stone cold type draw. Not that he's bad necessarily, but it just hasn't been what we've kind of thought. And ever since he came in, it went from great to just downhill pretty quick. As soon as the MJF and Punk stuff died, then it went downhill. And it sucks because at least myself, Cole, I'd say you are probably as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but big fans of his work over his career. And it seems like what we've talked about, right? The inmates run the asylum, and unfortunately, Punk has kind of been the head inmate, to be honest with you. And it seems like the inmates just fight over who's got the top because you have the EVPs, and the Bucks and Kenny and all them with their titles. But then you have, and I don't mean like championship titles, I mean like titles within the company. And then you have, hey, I'm the biggest draw and everybody wanted me to come back. I'm the man, and CM Punk. And it's like, well, you probably could have saw the clash coming, but it boils over and this is what it is. So regardless where we stand today, Punk is out with an injury. Um, which is another side of this, Cole, because Punk has been hurt since he's gotten back. I mean, he's been hurt, I want to say, about damn near every other month. And it's like, okay, what's the problem here? And I think it's age. I think it's him being out of the ring for so long. Um, and for selfish reasons, I hope Punk does get to wrestle again, and I hope he can be okay. But clearly, there's a little bit of, I don't want to say Napoleon in him because that's not what I mean as far as size goes, but his mentality is that he runs the show no matter where he's at. And I think the problem is that he has kind of gotten that from AEW and Tony Khan, and it's kind of boiled over. So I don't know how they make it work if they do going forward, but the kind of blessing in disguise here is that Punk is going to be out regardless. Even if they decided, no, we're not going to suspend him, like he's out with an injury for a long time. So I don't know. It's unfortunate. And you know what really pisses me off? And I'm sure you're probably going to say the same thing. Moxley
Mhm.
has done a damn good job at kind of carrying the torch because I was at a Dynamite, literally the one right before Punk returned. Um, And I mean, Moxley was the head guy. He was the people's champion that everybody wanted to see. Great job representing the company as the main champion, I thought. And so did my friends who watch AW more than I do, who were there. And I don't know. I just feel like it kind of disrespects Moxley because you've now taken the title off of him, gave him an interim title, and then taken the title off of him again. And then let's see, he won it. No, did he win it back? And then I think Punk won it. All this stuff happened. They had to take it off of Punk again. And Moxley's the champion now for what, third or fourth time? So just let him hold on to it. For the love of God, just let him hold on to it. Let's get some stability within this damn company. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and I guess the one thing I feel like AEW is kind of missing out on, and what I feel like would improve a lot of things within the company. Obviously, okay, you mentioned inconsistent booking. Yeah, that's a big issue. What do we have to blame for that? The guy doing the booking, Tony Khan. I mean, get off the coke and put your glasses back on and learn from professionals like maybe Cornette or somebody. Go talk to Cornette and get some
Hey, by
and
the
learn this.
way, I just
Go
want to
on.
throw this in here real quick. Tony Khan, for everybody who thinks that he is not crazy and he's just kind of a weird dude, no, he's legitimately crazy. I watched that dude come out before the show, do his little speech, right? Get everybody hyped up, go back into the gorilla backstage. I don't know, wherever Tony hangs out. And then randomly, there's like 10 seconds on the clock before they go live. And this moron runs back out there. And I watched the TV guy kind of be like, hey, we're about to be live. And he's like, oh, okay. And kind of stumbled backstage. I'm like, bro, this is the definition of daddy's money if I've ever seen it. My goodness.
Mm-mm-mm. But either way, I feel like what could improve AEW in a sense with the culture and stuff is they need like an Undertaker. They need like somebody like a Mark Calloway in the back locker room, being the high court judge, the leader of that locker room and stuff. Because if they had someone like him handling business in the locker room and keeping everybody in check and doing the wrestler court and everything, I feel like that would improve some of the backstage culture and antics that's going on. Because right now, I feel like, yeah, the inmates run the asylum, but not only that, but they have no leadership among the inmates. So, of course, there's going to be a jungle in, in the locker room, and I don't think we're going to see any improvement until finally somebody puts their foot down and starts asserting their dominance and authority in the locker room and start, getting people's shit together. And until that happens, I think we're going to continue to see stories like this with fights breaking out, people out of control, nobody, managing the situation. Just, I mean, absolute chaos. I mean, who are you going to have running the locker room? I mean, obviously, you can't. This is one of those situations I feel like, just have like an old guy like a William Regal or somebody like Big Show being the top dog in the locker room. I don't think that's really going to work because, I mean, they're not
Because
really,
they're not active. Yeah.
yeah, they're not wrestling. They're not actively on the ring wrestling. They're managers and office staff. I mean, that's what they are. I mean, and the office and the locker room are two separate entities. And you got to have somebody that can really keep things in check and in line among the wrestlers that the wrestlers respect and keep everybody in check inside the locker room. Otherwise, yeah, we're going to keep hearing stories about throwing punches and, chicken shit
Well,
happening
you know
inside the
what?
locker room. And
We joke about this, or at least I did, but this, it sounds funny to say this, but it might not even be that far off from the truth. If Punk's dog, God forbid, got seriously hurt or knock on wood, his life ended because of that. I mean, AEW as a company, uh, PETA, I mean, they could
yeah,
have
wholly
gotten,
liable for that. Yeah.
yeah. So we joke about that, but that, I mean, smart by Kenny in a way of getting the dog out of there. Because could you imagine if that was the story? God forbid, if there was a fight and all of a sudden, hey, CM Punk's dog died because your locker room can't keep things together. I mean, that would have been nightmare scenario for Tony Khan.
I mean, he's already going through a nightmare scenario as is, but hey, that's not my problem, unfortunately. And and even Jim Cornette came out on the podcast and was like, "This wasn't a work. This is mostly. This is got. I mean, this is under this from the looks of it and everything. This is 100% a shoot, 100%." And he's like, "If this is a work, this is the absolute worst work I have ever seen in my life. And he's right. I mean, this is this was like Montreal. He almost equated it to Montreal screw job in a sense, but even that to an extent was partially a work too. I mean, even though it was a last minute arranged work, it was still partially a work. I mean, even though a lot of it was still a shoot for the most part. So, but either way, I mean, he had the same comments that we all have. I mean, this is ridiculous. Who is actually in charge in this company? And that has been the pressing issue that we have all talked about for a year now, and so on and so forth. And so far, it seems like there's going to be no end in sight to figuring out, well, who the hell is in charge here? And because I'm sorry, I don't see Tony Khan doing it. I don't see any of the EVPs doing it. It's all Friends Wrestling. And
well, the you
got a bunch of
EVPs aren't even allowed in the building. I mean,
so, and not only that, but like obviously it ain't safe to go inside of the AEW locker room because you don't know if somebody's going to get mad because you're getting more TV time or you get more money or, oh, you're up for a title match. So let's just hash it out before the match, 5 minutes before the match. Like, really? I mean, these are little trivial chicken shit issues that should not be occurring inside the locker room of any wrestling company, but they are. And this is the kind of deal that, will begin the slow downfall of AEW, which just sucks because, we've been looking for competition to WWE for so long, and the competition we're getting is like, it's like, we got adults over in WWE, and then on the other side, we got a bunch of kids trying to copy all that. And
they're killing each other.
Obviously. Yeah. And the kids have no idea what to do because, I mean, they're kids. They don't know how to replicate that success. I mean, yeah, some of them have experience in there, but what do they know? So, got to look at it from that way. Anyways, and there's also been some rumors coming out that apparently that Chris Jericho is somehow, some way going to be back in WWE. Now, obviously, Chris Jericho did come out and say that. Obviously, he did come out and say that that's not really going to happen, but you never know. I mean, hell, he could end up getting tired of it and saying, you know what, the hell with this, I'm out of here. I mean, but then again, it seemed like Chris Jericho had been having a lot of fun in AEW doing, well, I don't know, beer trucks and, well, yeah, whatever that was, and a whole bunch of other dumb shit that we're like, what is this? We don't expect this from Chris Jericho. And not only that, but he's 51 years old. Are we gonna have another Ric Flair? Is Chris Jericho going to be the next Ric Flair wrestling until he's 77 or whatever? Even trying to continue wrestling until he just drops dead in the ring. Are we going to have that? Are we going to have that? I mean, I'm sorry, but there needs to be an age limit on some of these wrestlers. On continuing to wrestle way past their prime. Glad they're doing it in a sense, but why are we still having some of these guys on TV as wrestlers trying to do wrestling moves at such an old age, taking these bumps? I mean, we saw what happened to Jeff Hardy. I mean, guys getting older and taking all these drugs, and next thing you know, now, well, he's out of a job as a result of just trying to stay in it at beyond the point of time that he should be in it. And we're seeing the same thing with Jericho trying to keep his image fresh, but I don't know. A lot of smoke in the air when it comes to AEW. A lot of smoke is going to continue being in the air, and unfortunately, there is no end in sight for all the chaos and drama and horse shit that's going on inside All Elite Wrestling. So we'll continue to watch and monitor all the situations as they unfold, as each drama and fight and other chaotic incident just to garner ratings continues to unfold inside All Elite Wrestling. Anyways, last but not least, apparently Sting might be considering coming back into doing a little retirement tour of wrestling.
Oh, good lord.
What is it with these old geezers trying to continue wrestling? They're way too old. What is going on here? Sting will be crossing the Pacific in January to make a guest appearance for the farewell retirement tour of wrestling, Japanese wrestling legend Kenji Muto, which they obviously wrestled back in the 80s, but apparently there had been talks that apparently Sting wants to have yet another retirement match. And of course, some of the names tossed out were like Macho Man Randy Savage, Roddy Piper, Darby Allin, maybe Chris Jericho. Like really? It's ridiculous. I don't know what else to say. I mean, if you got any comment on it, I'd love to hear it. Trying to get back in the ring. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, we do have to wrap up here in the next couple minutes, but it's sad to an extent because you don't want to see these guys kill themselves. But it's like you said with Jericho, I don't think he's gonna stop. And with Sting, it's kind of like, well, we've seen the old man jump through a table. It is what it is, but whatever. I mean, there's no real governing body over professional wrestling, so these guys are going to do what they're going to do. It's their lives. It's sad, but whatever. That's kind of how I feel. But you got anything else before we got to wrap up here?
I do not. I think I'm ready to say goodbye and good riddance to AEW. So let's go with something more positive. So, but anyways, yeah, that's all I got.
Alrighty. Well, I have 2 other podcasts to get to tonight, so that is going to wrap up this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, leave us a like. Let us know your thoughts. A lot of stuff that we missed. Trying to catch up on everything here, but we're gonna try to keep these a little bit more regularly. As you guys know, my schedule's changed, so we're gonna keep cooking and we're gonna keep getting them out. But yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how some of these things unfold. But that being said, Cole, if you don't got anything else, we'll see you in the next one, everybody. Hope you guys have a good one and stay safe. Don't get sick.